Welcome. Oh my God, this is fun.
This is our pilot episode.
This is our pilot episode of the I'm Doing Great podcast.
Welcome. Hello and welcome to all friends and foes.
Who are you?
Who are you?
I'm Mike Lerner. Who are you?
Do you ever go by Mikey?
No. My mom calls me Mickey every now and then.
Does she call you Michael when she's mad?
No.
I met your mom once and she doesn't seem like someone who gets mad very often.
Not in public.
My name's Gina. Hi.
What do we do now?
I don't know. Well, we have some questions to answer.
Well, why don't we talk about what the impetus of this podcast was? Like what made us want to start it?
We just got really angry. We decided to do a podcast because...
For the most part.
Because we were just watching a lot of podcasts and shows and a lot of them suck. That's mean. I don't mean that.
I think a lot of them are lacking a little bit of substance and are kind of fake. I think there are a couple out there that are absolutely genuine, but
and we're both also tired of watching people just agree with each other for 3 hours straight. So
yeah,
and we don't agree on everything.
No, and
we're also very disenchanted with what's going on in the conservative movement right now.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that we're past the point. We're obviously past the point where people are fed up with the woke agenda. You even have a lot of leftists / liberals who are now coming out very fed up with the woke agenda. But we're past that now. I think we're now at a point where somebody has to start criticizing what's happening on the right from within, because nobody's really doing that.
No, 100%. I might find people on the right a little bit more cringe than I do people on the left, just because their whole existence is cringe to begin with. But like when I start to see people like Dan Crenshaw, or I'm trying to think of any other cringe personality or politician or any carrier of the torch for conservatism kind of get squishy, as Michael Knowles likes to call him.
Squishy,
I'll call him cringy. He calls him squishy.
Yeah.
The squish.
The squish. That's a really good term because, they're very squishy and they're weak.
Yeah. Yeah, and though I don't think the whole point of this podcast is going to revolve absolutely around politics, I think it's going to be kind of a 70-30 split with kind of culture leading the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just our commentary on culture.
Because, I mean, this is one of the questions that somebody submitted, so I'm getting ahead of ourselves. But one of the things that the left understands is culture. And I think a lot of conservatives really get that wrong. They don't understand culture, and so
I disagree with that just a little bit. And
we'll
get into the whys. But yeah, so the impetus for this podcast is so that Gina and I could talk about culture and politics, obviously. But we've thought that the best way to do that for the first episode was to have people send in questions to us, so you guys can get to know us, because I think all the questions we're about to answer were submitted by people that follow you.
Yes.
So this audience might be more familiar with you than they are me. Though I have gotten a bunch of like middle-aged women followers since your stories.
I wouldn't think that's a target demographic for you.
Here's a question. Why are people on Instagram private? I understand that, but when I get a follow from someone who's private, I'm not inclined to follow that person. I don't know anything about you other than how many followers you have and a little bitty picture. I get it. I have a kid. We have a little private profile for her, so friends and family can see she's up to. Oh yeah.
I didn't know you have a.
Yeah, I'm not going to put the at.
I don't want strangers. Why don't I follow it? Am I allowed to follow it?
Of course, send the request. My wife runs it.
Oh, okay. So it's parent monitored.
It's parent monitored and it's
because
parent
I don't think she's
approved.
Old enough to do.
Yeah. So if we see some guy named like Josie from Texas and he's wearing glasses and has a beard, he gets denied.
Yeah.
With an underscore, Josie underscore from Texas. Instant pedophile. That's the reason why, like, I think before we jump in, we can actually talk about, current events where John Legend's wife, what's her name?
Chrissy Teigen.
That trash fire, Chrissy Teigen, like posted a picture of her in her bathtub with her kids.
Yeah, and there was another one too where I think she was in
swimsuits, I think, or something like that.
Swimsuit or shapewear or something very revealing, and her breasts were pretty much coming out, and she was trying to pose for the camera, and her son was like, trying to touch her, grab her or something, and she wrote some really awkward caption like, "Watch out, mommy's trying to be thirsty." And like the child was standing right. It's just so.
It's not watch out, mama's trying to be thirsty, but especially when you're posting underage kids in a bathtub, it's just a pedophile feeding frenzy. And I don't think parents are aware of this as much as like I've told a couple parents like, don't put any photos of your kids online in swimsuits or in a bath or anything like that.
Yeah, no.
Again, I think we had like pictures of Rowan like in a bath in that little tube that she floats in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But again, it's on something that's private.
Right.
No one can see it.
Yeah.
Or like if you're going to do that, put it in a story so it disappears in 24 hours.
It's a thing. It really is a thing where sickos and creeps will take photos and videos from from kids online. And I mean, I've even heard this it freaks me out, but they can get uploaded onto child porn sites.
100%.
So like you have to be really careful.
People talk about it, but people aren't about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like people talk about, oh, pedophiles are horrible. I would never live with a pedophile. But if someone came to my dorm and was like, hey, I would just like to let you know, I'm moving into the area. I have been convicted for, child sex crimes. I am a, convicted pedophile. Because they have to there's things where they have to identify themselves. Jail right away. Jail. Or I what do you do? I don't want a pedophile living. I've checked people who live in the area who are convicted of like, oh yeah, you can.
I haven't done that yet.
Yeah. Why do we allow pedophiles to live in the society if they're caught?
Well, don't get me started on how they're trying to rename what pedophiles are. What is it called again? MAP, minor attracted person. That is so infuriating.
Yeah.
They're trying to relabel the whole thing because...
Well, they're trying to make it a psychological disorder.
Right.
Which, I mean, I get, some validity in that. Like, you have to be a mentally ill person.
I'm getting choked a little bit by this cord.
Where's that on your left side? So flip your headphones around. Put the cord on the other side. Or you can just do that.
That's better.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
I don't think they mind.
Okay. Should we start with questions?
Yeah, let's get into questions. We can talk about maps at some other point. But yeah, go ahead. How about you read these?
Okay.
I'm going to put them on the bottom. As you read them, there's going to be text here on the bottom.
Clever.
So people who can't, people who are deaf, they can't listen to this.
They can't listen to this anyway because we don't have
I might put captions on it. You can put auto-generated captions and it's pretty
close.
Oh, you
can?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get into the first question.
I'm going to just preface this by saying I am reading these questions exactly as they have been submitted. So these grammatical errors are not my doing.
That's fine.
Okay.
No judgment.
Okay, great. So I'll just kind of mix and match here. What's a good first question? Let's go with...
just go in order so that you don't have to find your place.
Okay. Yeah. Can you talk about how men and women are biologically different? This is obviously a very culturally relevant question.
How long have you been alive?
I know. No, I will say this though. I think the person whoever asked this question, I'm guessing they understand the basics of how men and women are biologically different. But what my guess is that they're asking this question because they want to be able to talk to someone about why trans women, aka men, should not be competing in women's sports, right? Because the only sort of answer that a lot of people say is, well, the testosterone levels. And that's not a good enough answer for a lot of reasons. It's not a good enough answer because it doesn't even begin to scratch at the surface of why men and women are biologically, physically different. But it also doesn't serve its purpose because the left can come back and retort about how that dude's been going through testosterone reduction treatments or hormone treatments or whatever. So they use that as a justification for why dudes can play in women's sports. So I do want to talk about the structural differences. I mean, especially coming from someone who's been in fitness and...
As a woman.
Yeah, as a woman. Is there a woman's term for mansplaining?
Just explaining.
Just explaining.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously there are very different hormone levels in men and women, right? So men have about 17 times as much testosterone as women do, which is one of the reasons why we always tell women, if you lift weights, you're not going to get bulky unless you take steroids. But even down to structurally how our bodies are made, men have a much longer arm span. They obviously have much broader chests and they have much more upper body strength.
So for a sport like swimming, there's a clear advantage.
Like that dude, yeah.
Yes.
And then on top of that, men have more narrow hips. Obviously, women need bigger hips for childbirth, but narrow hips, they help you run faster. They help you jump higher. It lends itself more to physical activity, right? When you have larger hips, you're not going to be able to do a lot of the same things with the same speed and strength as somebody who has more narrow hips, right? And even down to things like women retain water a lot more than men do. We're much more bloated on average. Our colons are 10 centimeters longer than men's colons are. We have more reproductive organs down there. So we have more digestive issues. We have more bloating, all of that because we need to reproduce.
You guys menstruate once a month.
Oh yeah, that's a thing too.
That's a clear difference.
That's a clear difference.
But apparently no. Apparently I can do that. Imagine the type of world that we live in where reality is so warped that we have to use, I don't do it, but people do it, and I hear it all the time, commentators, people in media, whatever. But now they're using the terms biological to preface men
It's so
or
stupid.
women. It's
even.
men and women.
It's just men and women.
That's
But,
why when
yeah.
people say like trans men are men, it's like, no, trans men are trans men.
Yeah,
They're
and that's why
not-
you don't
they're
call
not
them men. That's why you call them trans men.
Exactly. I don't understand what the problem of that is. Even with someone who is trans, I think that they would accept the fact, yes, I am a trans man.
I posted something. Oh, it was about that swimmer from Penn who
Right.
was, I think, a 22-year-old swimmer who was swimming as a man on the men's team for a long time, and then decided to just, I don't know, grow his hair and call himself a chick. Jail, straight to jail.
Or just
And-
go to Thailand, dude. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, it's funny. It's the culture there's so different. They would accept him with
Right.
open arms.
Right.
But he then competed in all these women's swim meets, and obviously
Crushing.
he beat the record. This is so funny to me. He beat the record by 15 seconds.
I heard in one meet
15
I heard in one
seconds.
meet he did 38 seconds.
That's just so insane. I mean, that's so laughable because to beat a record by 1 second is a big deal. 15 seconds?
30 seconds. It's the same thing in track.
What are we doing
Right? It's
here?
the same thing in weightlifting.
Yeah.
And it's sad to me when women are now too scared to say anything about this. And this is what
Because women are very agreeable.
Right. And one of the things that one of this guy's teammates was saying was like, we are supportive in person, in public, but we are not. We're silently against this thing.
Ugh.
And it's just like, I don't understand how this team could be like, listen, this is completely unfair. We've trained our whole lives for this to be competing against a specific sex of people where the other sex has a complete advantage over us, and this is why they split men's divisions and female divisions. Like, this is completely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Just for girls that are on that team. Forget about the girls that, he's competing against. But like, I don't understand how we allow that to happen, for the sake of inclusivity. But that's not inclusive.
It's not inclusive at all. No. And what's kind of frustrating to me too is that the moms whose daughters have been working so hard for years to train for these meets and train for whatever activity they're in, and now these girls are losing scholarships to school. They're losing games, they're losing matches, and now all of a sudden these moms are coming out and speaking out against it. Well, before it affected you and little Miss Susie, before that, you didn't care. Like, nobody talked about it because you were afraid of offending people. And so now that it affects you, now you're going to talk about the trans agenda. Yeah. It's a little too late. We should have been talking about this a long time ago. So I posted about this swimmer on my Instagram, and I said something about, I used the hashtag men are not women because men are not women.
It's not a very radical statement, I don't think.
And there was this, where do I know her from? Some girl I know from the fitness world, and she's very woke. And she commented and said, I have a transgendered sibling, and trans people go through so much
Good for you.
ridicule. And first of all, they don't go through ridicule. Being transgender is the highest form of social currency that you could have and possess today.
I agree.
It really is. To be trans is to be revered and loved and glorified in society today.
Yeah.
It really is. It is a get out of jail free card for just about anything. Like Ellen Page, what's her name? Elliot Page.
Yeah.
Nobody can criticize her ever again because she suddenly went trans and cut her tits off and got fake abs. And now she is like at the highest level of celebrity. She's untouchable. So don't come into my comment section and tell me that trans people get ridiculed at the highest level. No, you guys are the most revered in society right now.
They're the most supported by basically mainstream everything.
Yeah, because at the center of intersectionality, they rule.
You can't be oppressed if all, I want to say more than 50% of any political group supports you, mainstream consumerism, corporatism, everything is behind the transgender issue, which, I mean, like, they're trying to portray themselves as this new civil rights, like Black Americans during the civil rights era. Like, you are not oppressed.
It's insulting.
I can't. And then they bring up the suicide rates, and I'm just like, I don't think people are committing suicide because people are mean to them online. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think people are committing suicide because they are regretting these transitions, and I guess like I attribute it to a mental illness, and like people with mental illness, when they do something incredibly drastic to their physical self, I don't know. It's very hard for me to explain this. I think you have a better hold on it, but I always feel like we're all going to die. We all have a limited amount of time on this earth. Why are we so preoccupied with how we appear to other people? Because I think that's what it is. It's like, if you're a guy, you can just say you're a guy. I don't think you need to like, chop your tits off, try and get a, uterine transplant where you get that stuff taken out and then like put like a cone in your pants so that you can pee at a urinal. Like that doesn't mean anything to me. If you feel you're a guy, you're a guy. Like, oh yeah.
Okay, wait, going back to what you said about mental illness, something that people are too afraid to talk about is that in the LGBTQ, LMNOP, whatever other letters they have in their community now, they have extremely high rates of mental illness, very high rates of depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, suicide. And it's been this way for a long time. So we have to ask the question, well, why is mental illness so much more prevalent in these communities? And they say it's because of bullying.
Right.
They say it's because they're marginalized.
Don't think so.
And I don't see the data pointing to that at all. I think that it's something really worth talking about.
I have nothing but compassion for these people.
I do too.
Like, I want them to get better. I want them to live their lives.
I genuinely feel bad for them.
I really do. But what I'm not going to do is to warp my reality and to warp reality where I have to accept this person as the other sex just because they say they are.
Just to make them feel better.
Which I'm also giving them, I guess, the pronouns that they want to use. If I'm saying they a lot, because I'm talking about a singular person or a group, so I should be using singular pronouns, but I'm saying they a lot. So I've fallen into it. I've been tricked already.
What are your pronouns?
Whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. Imagine the mental state of someone who is called the wrong pronoun and then has to lash out on TikTok or on Instagram or in person.
Oh, my favorite ones are when they cry into the camera.
It's a form of narcissism. That's all.
It is. That's
everything.
Yes.
In our society right now can be boiled down to narcissistic behavior.
Yes.
That's all I have to say.
This is a really good point. I'm going to add one more thing before we move on to the next question.
Sure.
The narcissism. So it was my guilty pleasure when I was growing up. I used to love Sex and the City. It was like sort of one of the first shows of its time, of its kind on HBO. And so they did a reboot called And Just Like That just released the first 2 episodes. And I was like, okay, I have to watch it just for old time's sake. And I want to see how terrible it is.
Is Mario Cantone in it?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I bumped into him on the street in New York City like 12 years ago.
Is he exactly the way that he seems that he would be?
Took his photo. He wasn't yelling. No, he was very quiet.
Oh, my next question is if he was yelling, because he's very funny when he yells.
Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
So I watched the first episode, and it's obviously just dripping with wokeism in a way that's very uncomfortable. But there was a character who hosts a podcast, and she's introducing herself, and she's like, I'm queer, non-binary, Mexican, Irish, diva. I don't subscribe to those boring genders of the binary genders. And she keeps talking about how she's so interesting because she doesn't subscribe to male or female. And it speaks so much to this narcissism. They have to be so special. They have to stand out. They need to have all this attention because they're just too interesting to be a man or a woman. It's so narcissistic.
Do you so before we get on to the next question, I think I sent you the post from some what are the products called for periods? Tampons, yeah. It was, I guess, a tampon company.
I was wondering what that gesture was.
Sorry, yeah. This tampon company put out a graphic that was like, all genders get periods or something like that. And obviously I said something, I was like, this is, you're adding to the complete erasure of women. And then, someone came in and was like, who are you to say what a woman, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, define woman.
Yeah.
And she responded with,
oh goodness,
a person who identifies as a woman.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, no,
define woman without saying woman.
Is a female human being. That's the textbook
female
definition
adult,
yes. Right. That's the textbook definition of what a woman is. And I'm like, these people have to warp reality in order to explain their positions that make no sense.
Yeah.
And it's just something that like bothers me. So I'm glad at least we got the first question in there.
Okay.
And let's move on to the next one. Can you read the next one?
Number 2, how do you submit to your husband without feeling like a doormat?
Okay. Originally I wanted to strike this question.
He wanted to ask this question, but okay. Ask, not like ask, like acts, like get rid of it.
Right. Now, do you have any, I guess, insight into this question? Because I don't really, this is weird. Like, I feel like I'm a conservative guy. I'm a traditional conservative guy. I should want my wife to submit to me in every sort of way. But at the end, I just want to have a healthy relationship with my wife.
Right.
you don't marry someone where you don't understand the dynamic between the two of you. You know what I mean? If she just turns into this completely dominating and domineering figure the day after you get married, might not work out. So, I mean, I'm just speaking personally, but
yeah, this is an interesting question because there's a lot in here that I want to unpack. So we won't go through all of it, but I do think that there is a bit of a misunderstanding about what it means to submit to your husband. So, of course, let's just backtrack and say this notion of submitting to your husband is rooted in Judeo-Christian ideology, right? Because in the Bible, God calls wives to submit to your husband, but what most people leave out is that God also calls husbands to lead and cherish their wives and to treat them like a treasure and to treat them the same way that Jesus viewed the church, right? So
I'll allow one Jesus per episode.
Okay. So we'll check this one off for episode number 1. So that's where this reference kind of comes from, right? And so when people talk about submission to your husband, they have this idea that you have to be a doormat, that the husband tells you what to wear, what to eat, when you can leave the house, when you're allowed to be in the kitchen, all these, it's just an exaggerated view of what it means to submit to your husband. But at the end of the day, it kind of boils down to masculine and feminine energy. In every relationship, there's masculine and there's a feminine presence. I mean, hopefully the man is the one who brings a more masculine energy. And when you just kind of strip it down to masculine and feminine, masculine gives, feminine receives. That's kind of biologically how it works as well, right? So if we're talking about how to submit to your husband in a way that's healthy, I think the simplest way to put it is that you let the husband lead. And lead can manifest in many different ways. It can mean you lead the household financially. It could mean you lead the household spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is. But masculine energy is also defined by steady groundedness, right? Women are, we ebb and flow. We're up and down, right? Even down to our hormones. Like Carly's not the same every single day of the month, is she? Neither am I.
Bleeping her name out. No one's gonna know what her name is.
Okay, bleep. Yeah, there you go.
I'll do it.
So women, we're different a lot, and we're more emotionally complex. Men are steady. Like you and my husband Adriano are very like quintessential examples. You guys are the same every day. Like it probably takes a lot to push you off the edge, right? And so feminine is, I want to say like water, but we ebb and flow. We're different. So the masculine is someone who is steady and grounded, and the woman can be feminine and ebb and flow around that.
Well, I think also the trait is there's some security in that, knowing that your husband is not an emotional roller coaster for the most part, just because I would assume that back to, early men days, if you had a man who wasn't able to hunt and to lead and who was just emotionally all over the place, the females in that group are like, this guy, we're going to let him out to pasture because he's not worth it to us. He's not valuable to us. And, when I got married, my friend who married us was able to, he asked us to write some letters about why we're marrying each other. And my wife mentioned that I was sort of a personal Xanax for her because I kind of stayed the same, through our relationship. So basically, like, I never really, it's rare that I get incredibly emotional unless I'm watching a movie or something like that. But she's like, what? You never show any sort of distress. And I remember telling her, I was just like, well, if I show you that, I think that would add to a little bit more of your anxiety, because you don't want your husband to be a worry wreck, or to, be this sort. And I'm not saying depressed, because obviously people deal with depression, but just a guy who's unable to control his emotions is a very dangerous man, I think. So
yeah, that's actually a good thing to dive into, but we'll do that later. I want to add one more thing. But there's also a misconception when it comes to submitting to your husband. There's this misconception that the matriarch is weak. And I want you to think about, like, you have Italian blood, right? No, you don't.
She
I'm thinking
does.
of somebody else. Okay.
She does.
So funny enough,
I have Latin, Salvadorian blood, and Russian and Eastern European blood.
Then this will probably resonate with you. I hate that word. Both my husband and I are half Italian. My dad's Italian, and when you think of like the Italian matriarch, the grandmother, is she weak?
No,
she runs shit. She runs the show.
She is physically not weak either. She usually has very large hips.
Yeah.
I just imagine an Italian grandmother with an apron on 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, she runs the show. Like, children fear her. They don't want to get in trouble with the grandma or with mom. You know, she's the one. She's kind of in charge of the home. And so when we talk about, and she probably traditionally still submits to her husband. When we're talking about submitting to your husband, we're not talking about shrinking and becoming
like
weaker.
You said, submission does not equal doormat.
It doesn't. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
I guess getting back to the question, how do you submit to your husband without feeling like a doormat? Is you let him lead. You allow him to be masculine. You give him the space to be masculine and to lead. And then,
And if he's not, you better say something to him.
yeah, I mean, you have the conversation.
I think so. I think I've never, like, obviously there are different generations of men, like my grandfather's generation, who obviously didn't really talk about their emotions all that much. I mean, it's well known. You had a million soldiers come back from World War II and who weren't going to support groups or anything like that. But I always see these things on like Instagram where it's just like a woman will ask a question like, guys, who do you turn to express your feelings if you're ever down? And then it'll cut to guys going, no one. I don't have anyone. No one. We're men. We're not supposed to show that. And I was like, that's... I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I think that's a facade. I think guys are willing to talk about their emotions to anyone who would listen to them without judgment. And I think we as men need to be there for each other because, you know, we want to be leaders. We want to be examples for other men. And to just say blindly and, you know, without any sort of hesitation that no, guys have to be guys. We have to hold everything out. I'm tired of that too.
Yeah,
but
I think
that is devolving from this
hopefully
question.
we're past that stereotype too, because being masculine does not mean that you never show emotion. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I love martial arts, because it teaches men how to face emotion, not to turn from it, because it's a very humbling emotional experience to learn how to fight. My husband's a black belt, and
get punched in the face, guys.
It's
a life lesson.
That's therapy.
It really is.
It's more therapy than paying $200 for a session. So that's why masculinity does not mean that you're running from your emotions. It means that you face them head on and that you're able to deal with them. That's really what masculinity is.
Next question.
Number 3, feminism. What went wrong?
Everything from the start. First wave, second wave, third wave. It should never have existed.
No. Well, actually, maybe, but I have an answer to this.
Okay.
This is so interesting. Thank you, whoever asked this question. I'm so excited. I'm stoked. The first wave of feminism, I want everyone to listen very carefully. If you forget maybe, and I also actually do want to get into that. Like, I do want to get into the fact that the society started to break down after women were given the right to vote. Okay, I do want to talk about that. However, the first wave of feminism, they did not hate men. They admired men. They wanted to be like men. They admired men and their accomplishments and how successful they were in society and in culture. And they admired men. They respected the institution of marriage. They understood that strong men were essential to a well-functioning society. This is what is forgotten a lot when we talk about feminism. The first wave feminists, I'm going to say this again, they respected and loved men, and they knew that they would not be able to achieve things in their life without men by their side. They wanted to actually...
Well, they also knew that men were the only people that were able to sort of, quote unquote, grant them these rights to begin with. So they had to not acquiesce, but or submit. But I guess they understood who was...
They understood they had to work with men in order to achieve, quote, equality. I'm going to put equality in quotes because there's no such thing as equality.
No, I hate that.
Yeah. So what went wrong is that feminists started to hate men. That is really where feminism went wrong. The second wave of feminism, all of a sudden, we're talking about how the patriarchy... F the patriarchy, right? I didn't say the F word yet because I don't know if we decided we're allowed to say the F word.
I say that we can, but if you want to censor yourself, go for it.
Okay. So we moved into F the patriarchy. Men are ruining our lives. They're keeping us in the home. They're making us housewives. They're making us cook dinner while they get to go out and they get to go out and work and provide. So what went wrong is that feminists started to hate men, and they started to despise men. And this is exactly where...
Well, they wanted to be men too, though. That's the whole thing.
But they wanted to flip it. They didn't want to just be like... The first wave of feminists wanted to be like men, but they didn't want men to shrink and go away. Second wave feminists wanted to replace men. Gotcha. and have men just disappear, disintegrate, and not have any use in society anymore. Okay. This is where girl power. I hate girl power.
It's purely anecdotal, but I feel like every woman that I've known who's put career first and who's been obsessed over, you know, being in the workforce has turned out to be hasn't turned to regret it or whatever, but just seems miserable.
Of course she's miserable because she's denying what she's biologically meant to do, which is, sorry, but you're meant to nurture your home and raise your family. And I'm just getting into, I'm going to upset a lot of people. I mean, it's delicate because I'm a working woman. I work. I'm a mom. But obviously, the thing that's most important to me is raising my daughter.
If you didn't have to work or if you didn't want to work, it wouldn't affect you.
No, I mean, I would love it. Like we're hopefully, I would love to get to the point where I don't have to work. I mean, I would work. I would continue to build my own brand and run my own things from home. But I mean, yeah, it would be nice to not have to work. Okay.
So we got first, second, and third wave feminism currently is just an utter mess, which I'm going to assume that you're going to say, I don't even understand why there is a third wave.
Because they're bored. Because I'll tell you why. Because things are going so well. They're going so well, and they have no meaning in their lives. And because they've fallen into the trap of hookup culture, and so they're devoid of meaning. So they're trying to create some kind of suffering to find meaning in life.
Gotcha.
And so then they claim that they're oppressed because their tampons are expensive. And they claim they're oppressed, I don't know, because some dude whistled at her when she was walking down the street. This is sexism. And so they're just creating...
Maybe now more men should have periods because that will help bring the prices of tampons down.
There you go.
I mean, supply and demand.
Are you listening, modern feminists?
Hey, Joel, can you do me a favor, bud? Can you go over to the recorder and turn Gina down like one number? It's not that you're loud. I think I just had you turned up a bit.
I think I was getting fired up for a second and I got loud.
There goes Dream Rare behind us. What's his name? Anomaly?
No, it is Dream Rare on Instagram.
It is Anomaly. Does he go by
Anomaly?
Anomaly? Yeah. It's Anomaly.
If you're listening to this, Anomaly, you're awesome.
A little bit higher.
We were just your name came up because
Perfect.
our friend Joel kind of looks like you.
I think so. There
Mike says you guys have the same, was it disposition?
No. Kind of like...
what's the word you used?
Outward demeanor.
Demeanor. Yeah.
Next question.
Number 4, who is the most random person you have in your phone?
I'll start off because Nicki Minaj?
No, I said Mickey. I was calling you Mickey.
Oh,
that
Mickey.
would be cool. I would love to have Nicki Minaj's number.
I have a couple of people. One you mentioned, his phone number might be different. I mean, because this is
right.
For whatever reason, I don't really talk to him.
Send them
through
a
text
meme
anyway.
and see if he responds.
Through Instagram, I can. Yeah,
okay.
We DM each other still.
Oh, you do?
But Stacey Dash, I think, is the most random person I have in my phone, or celebrity that I have in my phone.
That is so random. That's very random.
I was doing this book about conservatives post 2016 election. Kind of influential people who helped change the minds of people who otherwise wouldn't have. And Stacey Dash is, for as long as I've known, has always been conservative. Like, she's been going on Fox News for the longest time, but she was someone that I reached out to, like, hey, I would love to feature you in this book. And I met her at a couple, I think.
What was she like?
Oh, she's so nice.
Yeah?
She's so nice. I've met her a couple times, yeah.
Okay.
It's just so nice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any strong opinions about her, but I always wondered what she was like in person.
I love her. Stacey, if you're watching this, like, we still need to do those photos. So,
Stacey, you're more than welcome to come on our show, too.
That would be great.
Yeah, this is we are extending an invitation.
Let's do that once we get like our own studio space.
Yeah.
Once this show becomes uber successful, which I think it will be.
Once we start turning down media companies from buying us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who's the most?
Well, I have
person?
a tie. I was telling you about this yesterday. I mean,
right.
Well, I would say one of the people that I'm most proud to have in my phone is Tim Dillon, because he and I were texting about booking Candace. Probably almost a couple years ago now, or a year and a half ago, she went on his show. And so I was coordinating with him because he DM'd me on Twitter about a year and a half ago and said, I'm on Joe's show. I really want to get Candace on here. How do I reach you? Can we call you right now? And I was like, dude, just text me next time. And then he texted me and we were kind of talking about booking Candace. And I really want to be friends with Tim Dillon. I want to be friends with him. And this is like...
Well, I'll edit a clip out of this and then you could send it to him.
I really want to be friends with him. He seems like I don't know. He just seems crazy.
Who's the other one?
Killer Mike.
Yeah, that's the more
one.
interesting one to me. No offense, Tim, but I think Killer Mike.
Yeah, and I was, I've spoken to him a couple times, obviously for Candace to get, try and book him on her show or something like that. And he's super nice because when I would text him, he would just call me because I think he prefers phone calls, and he just seems like a really cool dude.
Killer Mike, there's an Instagram I follow called Bag of War, I think. It's kind of military focused or just run by former military guys, and they talk a lot about guns and stuff like that. So sometimes Killer Mike will just be like, agree. And I think the whoever runs that page became friendly with Killer Mike, because every now and then you'll see him comment on stuff. But Killer Mike for me is one of those people where, we probably disagree on half the things. Any topic, there'd be a 50% disagreeal, or we'd just disagree on probably, half
I just
things,
don't know how he managed to get to Bernie Sanders, because he believes a lot of the same things that Candace believes, but he somehow arrives at supporting Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I think because he's probably just, more socially left than anything.
Right, yeah.
I think Killer Mike to me would seem like a strict constitutionalist, which would kind of butt heads with the, with the social issues. But yeah, I like him. I like the guy. Really, really concise, just incredibly well spoken.
Yeah.
Every time I watch him on Bill Maher, or I think he did an interview with Colleen Noir that he got a lot of backlash about. But I think he's really in touch with his community, and he doesn't bullshit.
Yeah,
which is one of the reasons why I like him. Next question, number 5. Why did I say it like that? Number 5? Number 5?
That was one we were going to skip, so we're going to go to the next one. That one was lame.
I'm not. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't either. What exactly is CRT, critical race theory?
Yeah.
And how has it been implemented so easily into our school system?
I know the umbrella term. Like, obviously I'm not as well versed in CRT, but I know that it was it was taught in law school as a way to evaluate I don't know, court decisions or lawsuits or anything like that, where it was just called critical theory, right?
Yes.
Or was it?
Yeah. So I'm going to do a shameless plug for Blexit. I work for Blexit, and we have just created a CRT packet called Blexit Takes a Stand Against Critical Race Theory. And we had a couple of tenured teachers who have been teaching for years and who have dealt with CRT being shoved into their curriculum by the school system, and they wrote this incredible packet explaining what CRT is, its origins, why it's dangerous, how to combat it, etc.
I think in a layman's explanation of it be, it is teaching people to see race in literally everything, and every underlying problem of every issue is racially driven.
That's it. So right. It's the worldview. It's a worldview that is based entirely in racial identity.
Okay.
And it's based off of, I'm not just making this leap. It truly is based off of Marxism,
right,
which we know is the lens of seeing the world as oppressor versus oppressed. So CRT takes oppressor versus oppressed and just puts the racial identity spin on it. So the way they see everything in the world is through racial identity and also oppressor versus oppressed. So that's what CRT is. And how has it been implemented so easily into our school system? Because it was not introduced right off the bat as, we're going to teach CRT, we're going to teach critical theory. It was snuck into lesson plans by terms like hegemony, decolonization, dominant ideology, equity, diversity, inclusivity, and equity. As soon as they started instituting diversity, inclusivity officers into schools, that's when CRT.
And even before that, into corporations, as far as businesses were concerned.
Right. And so that's how it's easily slipped into the school system. And then I'll also say this, what I've been learning so much from these teachers who did this packet for Blexit. Teachers are forced to teach CRT. Many of them don't even want to, and it's forced into their lesson plans. It's coming down from school administration. So it's very difficult for a lot of these teachers because they kind of have no choice. Now, what they do have a choice of is they get like I'll do it. Let me do it. They get like a free block of lesson plan that they can create themselves. So this gives teachers the opportunities to create a lesson plan that teaches kids how to think critically about CRT, which is what our Blexit packet does. It gives lesson plans to teachers and even parents if you want to go over this at home with your kids. It teaches teachers and parents how to talk about CRT in a way that's going to have your kids think critically.
And there should be no issue about thinking critically. If anything, like, our kids should be taught how to think critically. I think where critical theory began was in having this Marxist lens, is seeing every underlying issue with any sort of problem as being, the capitalist system and, all all that jazz.
All that jazz.
I wish I knew
capitalism.
more about it. I love. Isn't there a question about capitalism?
Yeah.
Here? Is that the next one?
No, it's towards more. Do you want to make that the next one?
Sure.
Why leftists? Okay, again, this is not my writing.
Right. Why leftists think capitalism is wrong?
Yeah. Okay. This is great. I want to talk a lot about this. So, first of all, the term capitalism was coined by Karl Marx. Capitalism came from Marx. What the correct term is a free market society. And I also want to say this. A free market society is not a man-made system. The free market society was discovered. Okay, and what I mean by that is that a free market society is just naturally how people function, how people create an economy without any kind of government boundaries or overreach.
Right.
Which essentially means that vendors, businesses, whatever you want to call them, they create their own price, and there's a price competition. Okay, so that's a free market society. So it was discovered. It's not a man-made system, which is why leftists think capitalism is wrong, because they think that capitalism was created by a bunch of old white rich dudes to just make a lot of money and keep poor people poor. But what they don't understand, because these doofuses don't know history and they don't read any kind of books about the economy, what they don't understand is that it was not created, it was discovered, because people were just naturally, there was no price ceiling, there was no rules on which you could set your prices, so people were just selling things at whatever price they were selling them at, and there was competition created that way. So socialism, and this is a really good book to read, there are two good books I would recommend about socialism. One is United States of Socialism by Dinesh D'Souza. Another is The Case Against Socialism by Rand Paul. Now, socialism, the way that Rand Paul says it, socialism is it's a negative type of economy. And what I mean by negative is that what it does is it places boundaries on another economic system. So it's not a positive economic system. What I mean by that, it's not something that is created. It's something that just puts boundaries and puts limits on another economic system, right? So leftists think capitalism is wrong because they think it's a zero-sum game. They're also taught to believe that the richer you get, the poorer somebody else gets, which is a complete misunderstanding of how it works.
That never made any sense to me. I never understood that.
Yeah, I mean, people, you don't understand how people believe
Rich people will exist,
yeah,
and poor people will exist. I guess, they're not hand in hand for the most part. I never understood that. So I guess, what would that be? If there's a company and someone owns a company and there are workers, are they saying that, based on profits, the owner of the company gets richer and these people get poorer? Or are they just talking about it broadly, where it's like, as long as there are rich people, there will always be poor people. And when these people continue to get rich, these people will continue to get poor.
Yeah, they think that poor people in society get poor because rich people get richer. I mean, it shows how broken the education system is, because you have this younger generation coming up who they actually believe this, and they're idiots for actually believing this. But at the same time, it's kind of not their fault, because they were taught this. They were never exposed to anything true when it comes to the free market society. They have no idea. There's one more thing I wanted to say about capitalism, but I forgot.
What did you want to say? I have views on it, just looking at it from a logical point of view, where I don't see any other system that could work other than capitalism. But obviously you talk about crony capitalism, which is, a bad thing, or anything dealing with monopolies, which is also probably not a positive thing. But when I think about it, even going back to, let's say, natives trading with pilgrims or with the French or anything like that, I obviously don't want to go, into colonization, but I'm just talking about trading in general, that trading is somewhat of a free market too, because you are volunteering what you are willing to trade for something else. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if any form of socialism would have been able to exist back then either.
Yeah, no, because socialism is all about state control.
I'm not good on economics.
I'm trying to get better, because I was never that great on it, but I've been reading and learning a lot.
Okay.
So next question.
Sure.
Negative effects of birth control. Did you want to talk about this one? Do you want to skip it? I
don't care. I'm not interested in it. I don't think we should have to waste time on it. Consult your physician.
Yeah. I mean, or just don't take birth control. But it's something that
I
talk about on my Instagram
I know
page.
that birth control also helps regulate hormones. And
No, it doesn't. Yeah, that's a lie. Yeah, I mean, I'll say really quickly is that we have been conditioned to believe that birth control regulates hormones. It doesn't. It actually wrecks your hormonal system. Birth control is not good for you in a lot of different ways.
Okay, yeah, like again, I have no opinion on this, nor do I have.
So I'll just say, don't take hormonal birth control. I can get into it on my page with some, because women only want to hear about this. I don't think men are interested.
Don't care.
Is there that's sexist? Is there anything regarding leftism has that conservatism needs?
You wanted to talk about this, and it's just basically like what can conservatives do to get on the same?
There are two things.
Level as leftists, as far as I would think, like organizing or which might, I'm going to insert myself into this first. I don't think there's anything that we need from the left, because we separate ourselves from the left as conservatives. I mean, if you want to talk about their ability to disrupt things or their ability to be loud, I mean, think about it. Look at vaccine passport protests. Look at pro-life marches in Washington, D.C., how they're the most, attendance-wise, they're probably the most attended marches or protests in the country, apart from Black Lives Matter protests last year. But I think for me, it's not understanding culture, like you said.
Yes. Okay, so I'll say this. The number one thing that conservatives need to copy from the left is their understanding of culture. And when I said this to Mike the other day, he said, well, I get culture. And I was like, well, I know you get culture, but very few people on the conservative movement really understand culture. And conservatives have lost culture. They lost culture a long time ago.
Well, hold on a second. Does a 70-year-old leftist understand culture as much as a 25-year-old one? And would that translate, does a 70-year-old conservative understand culture as much as a 25 or 30-year-old
Generally, no. I would say generally, 70-year-old on either side doesn't understand culture.
Right.
As much as a 25-year-old would. But I think
so we're talking about people our age.
No, I mean, I think the movement in general.
Okay.
I think, and actually, I will say something about age. Like, for example, I think that a liberal or a leftist boomer generally will probably understand culture better than a conservative boomer will. And what I mean by that is they may not explicitly say, I understand culture, but they do understand like how important it is to lead culture.
Okay. Well, I mean, they already are leading culture in a way, so they're already inundated by a lot of it, so they're aware of it more, I think.
Right. So it's like, so I'll say, so a good example is like, so, my parents have always been pretty conservative. They don't really quite get what it means to like participate in pop culture the same way that I've seen liberal parents.
Sure. Okay, I get that. I understand that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay, wait, I want to say one other thing too. Another thing that conservatives don't have that we need to look to the left for is we need to stop being so polite. The left is not polite. And we need to stop being so polite.
I get that.
That's really, we're too afraid to offend.
I think they're too agreeable in person.
We're too agreeable. Yeah. We're afraid we're going to offend people. We're afraid because our policies are not, quote, compassionate the same way that leftist policies are, which is why leftist policies fail, because when a policy is compassionate, it's just going to fail by nature. But conservatives, we get nervous because our values and our policies don't appear to be compassionate.
It's weird. You don't see, I don't think I've ever seen any conservative politician do anything on the same level as, let's say, like a Maxine Waters, wherein they're saying if it's I think it was the voting, if you're at a gas station, get up in their face or whatever. Like, I don't think I've ever heard a conservative say anything like that.
That's
publicly.
what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean. We need to.
Is it right though?
It's not.
That's the question. Is it right?
It can be right in certain cases, not in that case. But I do think we need to be okay with looking a leftist in the face, and we can bleep it out if we need to, and saying that is a fucking stupid idea.
Right.
We need to be okay doing that. We need
100%.
We need more people running for office who are okay with saying that is a stupid, low IQ idea.
Right.
We need that
I'm
more.
not even worried about that, having that in a normal conversation between two people in person who, irrespective of politics, but who are just talking to each other. Where I've said this, I'll be like, that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
I remember.
It's stupid. We need to be able to say that.
This is a quick example, and I'll make it as quick as possible. But there was a person who came into where I used to work, and he worked for another clothing company, and he was like, I want to start this clothing company that it's denim. We sell denim, then we give another. When you buy a pair of denim, we give a pair of denim to someone who's, not able to afford it, lower income people. And I was like, okay, in my head, I'm like, that seems like a waste of money, whatever. He's like, any company, and other than Tom's, I guess it just seems like a really weird profit incentive to give away what you're selling for free just because someone anyway. But then he said something. He's like, you know what? Like, denim's like water. Like, everyone should be able to have access to like good pants. And I was like, I said it without any sort of. I was like, dude, that's fucking stupid. And I said to him, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, man. And it wasn't a political conversation,
Right,
but it was
just-
something where it's
yeah.
just, I mean, it could be because, you know, when people are like, access to this is a right. Like, and I
No,
think he
people
almost
don't
kind of
know
made
what
the
it
point that
means.
like water
What
is a
right
right,
means.
like denim is a right. And I just be like,
Yeah, I've
dude.
heard people say water is a human right.
And I felt,
It's fucking
I felt a
stupid.
little bit bad because of the way he reacted was probably
Was he
didn't think
hurt?
anybody would ever say anything like
You
that to
probably
him.
did him a favor.
Probably. That idea is stupid.
It is really stupid.
I saved him a lot of money.
Yeah, you did.
Next
So-
question.
Oh, you're really excited about this one. Just to quote Mike, when we looked at this question, he said, "I'm going to wreck you."
Oh, go ahead, read it.
Now that you've seen Succession, aka the only TV show worth watching right now, do you feel like Trump was also used as a pawn to divide us and stir the hornet's nest? Should I give a little bit of background on what Succession is first?
No.
Okay, great.
Second part of the question, no, not a pawn. I don't believe
Yeah,
that. Let's
not
not
at
get into
all.
that.
I mean, you can tell by people's reactions. People were in genuine tears. They were having mental breakdowns on air because Trump got elected. He was not a pawn. Trump was the first time in many, 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 many years that the election went completely the opposite way than the establishment expected it to go. And they were losing their minds. So no, there's no way on earth that Trump was used as a pawn. He was a disruptor.
100%. You know what else? I always hated when people would say, like, you know, the office of the president is so dignified. Like, I can't understand or fathom why he can't just treat the office as dignified as it is. I would like a presidential to sound presidential. That's why when Obama talked, he had this way about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't give a fuck about how people talk, regardless of what office it is. I just
Yeah.
want people.
I just want
I
some
want
good
people
policy.
to do what we voted you to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's why with Trump, I was like, I don't care what he tweets.
I don't care if he's
I don't care how
polite.
he sounds.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's polite
I don't
or
care
not.
that he called Rosie O'Donnell a dog.
And honestly, that really doesn't change the discourse amongst people. I think it does in media, but not between people.
Yeah.
It never made sense to me. But let's not spend too much time on that because I wanted to talk about Succession.
The best show on TV.
Succession is one of the worst shows on TV.
It's by far the best.
I'll go into why. Okay, I liked watching it for the first and maybe half of the second season, and then I had this sort of kind of light bulb moment where I said,
You
this
had a brain
show
aneurysm.
doesn't change. It's not interesting. It's not. I was reading a New
very
York Times article
interesting.
because when you Google why Succession is a bad show, in quotes, nothing comes up.
Because-
Everything that comes up is why Succession is the must-watch TV show of the year.
Is
The
it
must-
though?
Yes. Well, that's what they're saying.
Okay, I haven't
and
seen
you-
those headlines to be honest.
Well,
but
if you type in why is Succession a bad show
Do they-
or Succession is a
does
bad
the
show,
media do they talk positively about Succession?
yes.
Oh.
Yes, someone said. I even went into a Reddit thread that was like,
I thought they would
don't-
hate it
I
because
don't
it's
know
all
if
white
I
people.
like you're going to throw me off of this thought that I'm having. the question was, I don't understand why I can't get into Succession. I like the Americans more than, and then someone responded like they're completely different shows, but what Succession is this nuanced show about family dynamics in America. And I was like, oh God,
I
it's
wouldn't
not
call it that.
nuanced in any way. Succession is for like this, white rich family who has problems, whatever. It's the same as Shameless, which I cannot fathom how it has had 15 seasons. So Succession is a show that makes me cringe as far as like, ugh, like it's just rich white people whining about who wants to take charge, who wants to fucking, lead this
Take
company.
over daddy's firm.
Yeah, and that's all they do is like backstab, but they do it in the same way. Nothing ever changes. Shameless is a show about like poor white trash who they get into these hijinks, and nothing really ever changes. And both of those shows have characters that I don't understand how anyone likes them. There's no
Roman.
one on Succession
How
that
can you not like Roman?
Oh God,
He's the best.
I don't want to get into why I think Succession is a bad show. I just think it's a bad show. I know it's a bad show, and I think anyone who hasn't woken up to this fact is still asleep. They haven't woken up yet, and I think one day it's going to click for them, and they're going to realize how much time they wasted, albeit an hour every Sunday.
Sometimes I
waste
watch
of
the
time.
episodes twice.
Oh God.
You know why Succession is so great? Because this is why I'm actually surprised the media speaks positively of it. it is.
They call it Shakespearean with Shakespearean power dynamics.
Oh,
of
in
succession,
in the Jeremy Strong profile, they said that Jeremy Strong. This is when they took it to 4. They said that Jeremy Strong was playing Kendall Roy as Hamlet, as if it was Hamlet.
Right.
I'm like, dude, it's a comedy. It's a dark comedy. It's satire. The reason why Succession is so interesting to me because it tells me exactly what leftists think rich white Republicans are like. And it's just satirical.
I get
like
that.
You know what I mean? This is what they actually think rich white Republicans are like. They think that they're like the Roys.
Yeah.
And it's comical.
When they're, I've met plenty of like millionaire Republicans who kind of like lead companies like that, and they're just, and I mean, who knows? Because I'm not in their inner circles, or I don't have any sort of intimate relationship. But like from what I've seen, like Succession, the characters in it publicly seem like awful people, but the people that I've met in my life, they're just quiet. Pretty much quiet. That's the best way that I can kind of describe them. Quiet, reserved, and really just kind of all about business.
You're all about it. That's why the show is so outrageously funny to me, because they actually think that rich white Republicans that have companies that are worth billions of dollars, they think that this is how they actually act.
I just can't get into the show anymore. I just
love the characters. I really do. I love the acting too.
If plots changed, if people were killed off, then I might be more incentivized
Kendall
to
Roy
watch
might have
it.
been killed off in this last episode.
Well, here's the thing. But it's taken them 2.5 seasons to kind of do that, and I'd rather have seen more blood.
There was I was gonna say something vulgar, but I won't.
And not like blood, but like not.
There was some nudity
blood
in this last one.
Who got naked?
Roman sent a dick pic he meant to send it to Jerry. Do you remember Jerry?
Yes.
Yeah, he meant to send a dick pic to Jerry, and he sends it to his dad.
Oh, nice.
And his dad fired Jerry over it.
Depraved. It's a depraved, stupid show. Next question.
It's excellent. Why is no one talking about the Ghislaine Maxwell trial?
Everybody's talking about it, though.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think what
why
they need is
isn't the media? Why aren't they covering it?
But we kind of know that answer already. I mean, obviously, because I'm just moving.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole again of pedophilia and Weinstein, or not Weinstein, but Epstein.
Well, let's ask a couple more because I want to wrap up soon and get home to baby.
Okay, let's see how much time we've got. Go ahead. Okay, yeah, we've got 5-10 minutes.
What are your predictions for the 2024 presidential election? I mean,
as far as who's running?
Yeah.
Well, you said Trump's going to run.
Trump's running. I heard that Pence is trying to run.
I got yelled at. I'm not going to say who, but I got yelled at for liking Tulsi, and I don't. The person was saying
I don't know why
that,
she's pro-abortion.
Oh, really?
She's pro-abortion, which I can't
get behind.
I can't get behind. There's a lot about Tulsi I like.
If there's one thing that I am sort of unmovable about,
she's pro-criminal justice reform, which I don't like.
Okay.
But I mean, I will say that there's more I like than I dislike about when it comes to Tulsi.
Abortion, I'm unmovable. Criminal justice reform depends on what we're talking about. But yeah, other than that, whenever she kind of... What's that? No. Anyway, whenever she seems to put herself in front of a camera, she says things that are somewhat agreeable.
Yeah.
And I guess if you look to sort of policies in the past, probably don't stack up well to what I think about her anyway. But
why doesn't she have kids?
I don't know.
That's what I don't understand. She is, I think, maybe even past her fertile age now.
Well, because I got ripped for saying a DeSantis Tulsi ticket would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I love DeSantis. I think in many ways he was what we wanted Trump to be.
Yeah.
Because he has proven so far to be a guy that means what he says and says what he means and does what he says he's going to do, and really is not afraid to stand up when he needs to. Yeah, which is kind of why I wonder if running for president would I want him to stay. Yeah. Yeah. I think he's much more useful as governor right now because we need stronghold states. Who can we see then? Let's just have a hypothetical. If Trump wasn't running, who can we see as a lead ticket? I don't know. I mean, Rand Paul. It's like those guys do their jobs in the Senate, like Ted Cruz, Jim Jordan, like people like that. It's just do your job in the Senate. I mean, what it is to be president, I don't. It's probably going to end up being Trump again, which I'm not stoked about. Can we just get someone under 55? Please. Can we just, I mean, I'm going to sound so liberal for saying this, but can we just take a break with the old dudes? For real. No.
I think Biden now is where Reagan was in his second term, which is not good.
Way too old. I mean, he's in diapers.
Well, honestly, I think there should be term limits. If you've even served 4 years in the Senate and haven't ran for president, either before that or during your Senate tenure, you shouldn't be able to run for president after that. It's just, I think there should be congressional, Senate, and presidential term limits. I think a presidential term limit should be 6 years instead of a possible 8. You just have 1 6-year term. Don't worry.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, don't worry about running again because, the half of your presidency is worrying about running for re-election.
That's interesting.
So if you have a 6 years, you're in for 6, do everything you can in that whole 6 years and you can't run again.
Yeah, not worry about getting reelected.
Right, because that would put a priority on policy.
Because I think a lot of what Trump did in 2020 with coronavirus, he did because he was thinking about what would get him reelected, like shutting down the country and putting Fauci in a position of power. I will never forgive him for that.
I remember
ever.
The first time the first time I noticed Fauci, and Carly, my wife, made a statement about, because I think Trump was saying something during a press conference, and Fauci just kind of went like this.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I remember being like, that's kind of funny, and then looking back on that now, I'm like, oh God, that I didn't realize how bad it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting idea, 1 term, 6 years, because it is really annoying to see presidents in their first term pander because they're thinking about getting reelected.
Yeah. No, that's all any politician does. Ooh, did that cut off?
Yeah, apparently there's a limit on the cameras.
Do we know where it cut off?
29 to 30 minutes it cuts.
I thought we get an hour out of it. Okay, so if you're watching this, we don't know where that cut off.
Whoa, so we have no idea where it cut off?
No. I think, when the last time I was looking at the camera, there was a red light on there. So it wasn't too long ago. 10 seconds?
Oh, okay.
What were you saying? Do you remember?
By the way, everyone, that's my husband in the background.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah. We are. The audio doesn't... let me check if the audio...
my gosh. What if the audio...
No, the audio is still going.
Okay, great.
So that's fine. That's good. But what were you saying? We were just talking about how no more 7-year-olds, please.
Yeah, please. Can we just have some?
Imagine people like Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, like even some of these people on the Republican side. I'm trying to think of like
Nancy
old.
Pelosi still functioning? I mean, whatever.
It's just like there's this movie by David Fincher called The Game where Michael Douglas plays this.
I've never seen that. I like David Fincher a lot.
Yeah, who's it? Michael Douglas' character is some sort of he's a guy that buys businesses or buys failing businesses or whatever, like one of those types. And he's saying to this one guy, he's like, "You're old. Like, why don't you just enjoy retirement? Your partner sold his business. He's never been happier." I'm just like, what is the incentive of these 75-year-old people to stay in politics? And it's obviously money.
It's money.
It's money and power, obviously.
Yes.
Nancy Pelosi. Well, it's like these people just get rich. Like if you just see the graphs of like
so backwards.
Their assets.
Barack Obama went into the presidency with student debt and walked out a millionaire. That's not how the presidency is supposed to work.
Well, technically,
it's public service.
Well, technically, he had 8 years, and the salary is $400,000 a year. So he was going to walk out of there a millionaire anyway.
Yeah, but
not to the degree of like 50 million with Netflix deals and things like that. And Trump only took $1.
I know. I mean, this is why. I mean, he was loved by the culture. He could have just retired and been rich and continued being loved, but now he's the most hated man in America.
We can talk about this on the next episode, where it's just where rural Americans really get behind any sort of Republican nominee when usually they're just millionaires or even billionaires, and it's just like, what do you identify with? Like, let's say if you're a rural American or lower middle class or lower class, like what do you identify with this person? Is it just that they're saying things that you agree with? Or, I mean, you're not going to identify anything with these people personally.
Right.
But the idea of the person is, if you strive to be like that person or own successful businesses or, be a, successful politician, I guess people can identify with that.
Right. Yeah.
But it's just like, would I ever really, get ideologically and almost obsessed with a person who's a billionaire and who says sort of inflammatory things every once in a while? I don't know.
They liked the the trucker talk from Trump.
Yeah.
They liked
Yeah,
that.
I get that. I like that. All right. Do we have? Let's
ask this one.
This will be the last one, I think.
Let's have this be the last one because I
Okay.
want to go see my baby.
Same.
Does having more Christianity and government violate separation between church and state?
Okay. Let me talk about.
Yeah.
Let me talk. Let me mansplain about this. There is. I'm not going to have a lot to say. There is a great episode of John Doyle's, I guess, YouTube channel.
Oh, I like
the last
John
thing that he
Doyle.
did talked about Christianity and conservatism, where there is a technical fallacy in the question that there's nothing in the Constitution that says anything about the separation of church and state. Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to a clergy group of, maybe it's Protestants, I can't remember, but where this person was saying, like, we're not getting any support from the government in regarding our religious practice or anything like that. And Thomas Jefferson was saying, in the Constitution, we talked about the government not establishing a state religion and allowing for the free practice of religion, which is in a way setting up a wall of separation between church and state. So there's nothing in the Constitution that says that church and state are separated. They're just saying the state is not creating a religion, and he just goes deep into that.
He's really smart.
Into that idea about how the state has actually created a religion. It's a religion of humanism in a way. So, the right identifies with conservatism or with Christianity, Christian
Judeo-Christian values.
Right, like that. And the left just has basically created this religion of humanism where the self is put at the center of everything.
Yeah.
He goes really, really deep into that.
Can you send that to me?
Yeah, I could send that to you. Just look up John Doyle, and it's his last video.
Oh, okay. It's his most recent one.
Channel, Heck Off Comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a smart kid. Okay.
So what was the question again?
Does having more Christianity and government violate separation between church and state?
So the answer would be no.
No, and I think what this person is trying to ask is if we have more Christian people elected to government roles,
right?
Isn't that a violation? And obviously the answer is no, but I also want to say this. What most people seem to forget is that a lot of America's core values came from Judeo-Christian values.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that our rights are God-given, they're from God, they're not from the government, they're not from the state, which is why they can't be taken away. And personal freedom, individual autonomy, like these are Judeo-Christian values. Now, that does not mean that you have to be Jewish or Christian to abide by these values.
Right.
It does not mean that at all. People misinterpret that and they think, well, I'm not Christian, I'm atheist. Does that mean I can't believe the same thing? No, obviously not. But you cannot deny that historically these values and our founding fathers, these values were rooted in Judeo-Christian values. So no, having more Christian people in government is not going to violate separation between church and state.
No, well, no, because it doesn't. I mean, unless the Congress becomes half occupied by pastors or priests or preachers, then obviously there would be some sort of issue there. Though there probably have been, pastors who have been congressmen or senators and stuff like that. Like people who led churches, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But I don't think there's many.
No.
So what should we do for our next episode?
Let's wrap it up. I don't know. I guess we would have to see what happens during the week, and then we can talk about it.
We can talk about some trending topics.
And again, still send us in questions because maybe we'll answer 2 or 3 questions during each episode.
Just please make them good questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Give us something where I can at least sound smart because so far Gina's been driving this one.
No, but make them good questions. Like I just get weird questions like, I'd like to hear you talk about everything. That's not a question.
Yeah, get specific with them.
Yeah, be
What's
specific.
your favorite movie?
Yeah, and
who's the
also,
first person you voted for and why?
I should say that these questions obviously don't only have to be about politics.
No.
And culture. You can also the question, the most random person on your phone is interesting.
I like that question a lot.
I do.
Yeah, questions like that. I mean, don't try to ask questions like that. Really, if there's anything that you're interested in,
let it
please.
come organically. So should we have like a sign off for I'm doing great? I'm doing great.
Oh, well, okay. So the Instagram, I'll put the Instagram now is IDG _ the podcast.
Guys, we tried so hard. Mike tried so hard to find a different handle. I think that handle is such a mouthful.
Well, guess what? Once they follow it, they don't have to worry about it ever again.
Yeah, but what if they're like, this podcast is really cool. The handle is like IDG podcast, IDG .
Great.
Yeah.
I think it's easy. I mean, there really wasn't much I could do about it. But like I said, this show is going to take a while to evolve in its sort of set decoration, in its graphics and logos and stuff like that. So just give us a second to kind of get into it.
But it's going to be the best show you listen to.
Obviously, the show is going on YouTube, so like, subscribe, comment.
Oh, yeah. Do all that.
Do all that. Follow the Instagram page. I'll put the like and subscribe comment graphic. I should have said something about that in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
But I forgot. So I'll do it at the end.
That's okay. We'll let this one slide.
Hopefully people are still listening.
Thank you all for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye. Until the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, my ears. Whoa, it's weird taking that off.